The last technique we're going to talk about is painting with light. Painting with light is basically where we're going to set our camera on a tripod, lock the shutter open, and go around firing a flash to light in an area or use some other light source to light up the area where we want the light to be. And when all the lighting has been accomplished, we go back and close the shutter and we have our finished picture. Here is a painting with light photograph. We have a very dark area, and there's a path down here that it's not lit at all. You would not walk there at night. So what this person did is they set their camera on a tripod, locked open the shutter, and they fired their flash this way, and you can see it made some shadows. And then they fired their flash from the side. They got over here and fired the flash this way. Now, that's the flash. You want to try to avoid that, maybe be off to the side some, but it didn't really ruin the picture. You could even hide behind things and fire the flash. And then when they were all done, they closed the shutter. Notice that these areas are lit nice, clear, colors look fine. Over here, it's a little different. Well, he didn't fire the flash into the trees. That's the ambient light from the street lighting that area. This was ambient light. And that's nice because it helps to fill in other areas as well. So I'm going to try to describe this as it happens. Keep in mind, you put your camera on a tripod, you lock the shutter open, and then while your shutter is open, the scene is recording, but it's dark. So what you do is you go around and you fire your flash several times, and then you come back and close the shutter. That's how it works. But I'm going to try to illustrate how this works by showing you incrementally how it would happen. This is a photograph of my scene with just straight flash. I have the flash on the camera, boom, this is all I get. If all I had was the foreground as my subject, maybe I could get away with it, but don't you want to see what the background looks like too? Let's assume I want more to show. What I can do is put my camera on a tripod, lock the shutter open, and then what I do is I stand off to the right in this case, over here, and I fire the flash once across in front of the camera like this, and the flash lights this area. Then I walk down a little further and I fire the flash a second time. And now my light is going to cover this area. Then I go down a little further, fire the flash a third time, and it covers this area. And then I go and I want some light behind this refrigerator unit and also up into the rafters of this shed. And I fire my flash 2 more times. I go back to my camera, close the shutter, and this is the final photograph. So that's how the concept is. Now, the reason I show you this picture also is I don't like this one. Notice how dark the areas between the flashes are. Let me show you one that I really like, and then I'm going to come back to this and explain why this one happened this way. Here is a tractor parked on a street, and this is just direct flash. Now, not much is going to record except, whatever my flash can do. And our flash doesn't work well outdoors at night to start with. And a lot of that is also that I'm using a fast shutter speed. My flash sync speed is 125th of a second. So even if there is other light, it's not going to really record. A little bit of this lamp up here, street lamp recorded, but that was it. And so I get this really dark and flat looking picture. But if I go ahead and set my camera up on a tripod and do my painting, look at the result I get. So here we go. I fire my flash from behind the camera towards the tractor there. Then I come over here and I fire from the right side and I fire the flash again. Then I go in front of this parked car and fire the flash this way. Then I went down behind the tractor. There's an embankment there, and fired up and under the tractor. Then I walked around to this side and fired the flash this way. And then I came over and closed the shutter. Now I have this really spectacular photograph. Now notice that the trees are all lit up, that we have this lamppost and the background. I didn't fire my flashes in those places. That's just all the other light recording during the time it took me to do this. So I couldn't do it in 10 seconds. I couldn't do it in 15 seconds or 30 seconds. So I had to use the bulb setting on my camera to go longer. And it took me a few minutes to do this. And during that time, all this ambient light recorded, and it helped to fill in spaces between the flashes. You see, when I took this photograph, I was a city cop. I didn't take pictures out in the dark, dark agricultural areas. But here I am out in this agricultural area where there's no street lights. There's no lights coming off of buildings. There's no nearby shopping centers. There was no moon that night. And I'm taking this photograph like I always do my painting with lights, with these nice spacings. Well, it wasn't good enough. And this could have been a lot better if instead of doing these 1, 2, 3 across here, I did at least 5. That'd probably be much better. And I need some light up there too. I probably should have fired a flash this direction. As I was doing this, I walked in front of the camera several times. Fired my first flash, second flash. Well, I had to walk around this way to get in front of this car. I fired the flash, and then I had to walk here and go down the embankment, and I fired a flash, and then I came up here and walked over here, and I fired the flash, but you don't see me. That's because this is a long exposure, low light, and I was moving, and what's really recording are the flashes and what's there for a long time without moving, like the trees and so forth. So you can actually move through your scene and not be seen. And so there is the before and the after. Here's another one. Here's the before, just a straight flash, direct flash on camera. It's going to light the foreground. Now this is a really nice flash I'm using. It's a nice, powerful flash. It did a great job in the foreground, but we don't see any in the background. This is painting with light, and none of the flashes were up here, so that's ambient light. So here's a flash this way, a flash this way, and then there's a flash fired from back here this direction. It got a little hot in one spot, but that's not a big deal. But look at how much we can see now compared to that first photograph. That's a much better result. So a couple more examples here, and then we'll get to the checklist of how to do this. Because one of the key things is you've got to get the right f-stop. All right, so I'm going to come to that. So here we have what the flash gave me. Not much. You know, I can see there's a walkway here, a roadway, red curb, pathway. Looks like a tree maybe. But look what my painting gives me. What a difference. For the painting, I fired the flash a few times this way, but I also got behind, you can actually see a little bright spot right there. That's probably my flash. I'm behind a hedge there, firing the flash, probably in this direction. And I fired the flash this way. I got behind here, fired the flash. So there you go. Now this easily could have been done with just a straight flash, direct flash on the camera. And if you did that, the car would come out nice, though it would be kind of a flat looking picture. You wouldn't see a lot of depth to it. That's what straight flash does. And the background would all be dark. Why? Because we're using a smaller lens opening and we're using a fast shutter speed for our flash photo. Well, in this case, here we have someone doing painting with light, lock the shutter open, fire the flash this way, and then from our right side to the trunk, and then got in between cars and fired the flash up in between some of the cars, came back, closed the shutter. The ambient light recorded some of the background, and this separation between the cars really shows because of the lighting in between. Another area where painting with light is very helpful is traffic collision scenes at night. If you have a really well lit intersection, use ambient light. you can get some really dramatic, beautiful results with traffic collision scenes with ambient light. Because here's what happens. If you just rely on flash, remember the inverse square law of light, you're using that fast shutter speed. You take a picture of the first car and everything behind it's going to be black. Maybe that second car is back there. And then you go take a picture of the second car and then everything behind it's black. You don't see the first car. So all you're doing is getting individual car pictures and you can't see everything. So the ambient light, if you're in an intersection, works well, or painting with light. So this happens to be a painting with light, and I have my camera on a tripod. So I fired here, I fired there, and then I got behind the truck and fired the flash toward the camera underneath, under the car, fired towards the camera underneath. And then I fired another time at the trunk, and then I closed the shutter. You just follow these steps and you should be able to do the painting with light as well. So you mount your camera on a sturdy tripod. Then you're going to use a locking cable release. Now, what does a locking cable release do? It allows you to lock your shutter open for an extended period of time. Mine, I have to plug it into the side of my camera. I could set it so when I click it once, press it once, it opens the shutter if it's in the B or bulb setting. And then when I click it a second time, it closes the shutter. Then we're going to set our shutter speed to the B or bulb setting. The way you do that is you go into manual mode. You slow your shutter speed down until you can't go any further, and it should show you B or bulb. So you set your shutter speed to the bulb setting. Then you're going to have to find out what f-stop to put your lens at. You go ahead and get the flash that you're going to use. On this flash, the settings here, I set it to my ISO, and then I set it to manual. I'm doing this in manual, not automatic flash, and it tells me f-stop and distance. What I have to now decide is where I'm going to put the flash to light my area. And if it's going to be 10 feet away or whatever, I decide, okay, 10 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet. I want to keep the distance for every flash the same. So I like this area at 10 feet, this area at 10 feet, this area at 10 feet. So I look on here, and on manual, it'll say 10 feet is f5.6. So now what I do is I go to my camera, and I have my camera already set on the B setting bulb. And now I have to set my f-stop to 5.6. Then we have to focus carefully. Now this is critical. When you are doing ambient light, or in this case, paint with light, most of the time your camera cannot autofocus. Autofocus doesn't work in the dark on most cameras. How do we do that? Well, on my camera, I actually have a little lever here. It has autofocus, and then it's got manual focus. If I put it on manual focus, now I can turn the ring here and focus manually. Now we're ready to take the picture. So you're gonna lock the shutter open. Then what you do is you fire the electronic flash to light the scene. What you have to do is look for something like a test button. This one just says flash next to it. If I just press this little red button right here, the flash fires. So you're going to walk around firing the flash from different angles, trying to keep the flash itself out of the view of the camera. And then once you have lit everything the way you want, maybe you're going to do 3 flashes, maybe you're going to do 20 flashes, whatever it takes, you come back and you unlock the shutter and your picture is finished.